And joining me now is Trump campaign senior advisor Jason Miller. Mr. Miller, welcome to Meet the Press. Let me start with how you plan to present your convention, the party's convention this week. You've got nearly 180,000 dead from this virus. We've got nearly 30 million people receiving some sort of unemployment benefit. The initial jobless claims went back over 1 million last week as these benefits have gone away. So that's a tough environment to present an upbeat convention, and yet the president says so. How do you do an upbeat convention with those numbers?
Well, Chuck, good morning, and thank you for having me on. We're going to see a very optimistic and upbeat convention this week from President Trump and our Republican allies, and actually from our Democratic and Independent allies as well. One of the things you're going to see this week is a complete change in the perception that I believe that the media tries to tell about what a Trump supporter looks like or who a Trump supporter is. We're going to talk about the American story, about all the accomplishments that we've had over the last 4 years with President Trump and what the president's second-term vision is going to look like. And this is a big difference, Chuck, between President Trump in his convention this week and the Democrats last week. Last week, it was a massive grievance fest. We didn't hear about the vision for the future, how their policies would help people, and there's a reason for that. The reason is because they didn't want to talk about the $4 trillion in tax hikes, a Green New Deal, at a time when we can't afford to stop our economy and our economic growth. They want to throw it in reverse and go back to the policies of the past. That's wrong, but you're going to see a great uplifting message from the president and from our allies. And Chuck, when I tell you some of these stories that you hear, there are going to be some breakout stars, some people that you would not expect to be supporters of the president, and it's going to tell a very beautiful story.
Well, when you hear the unexpected about the president, we're hearing the unexpected today about the president with somebody with the last name of Trump. I want to play one of these quotes from the president's sister and ask you about it on the other side. This is from the president's sister, recorded by his niece, Mary Trump. Marianne Trump, his older sister, did not know she was being recorded, but it was a legally made recording, according to New York state law. Here's what she said.
This damn tweet and the lying. Oh my God, I'm talking too freely, but you know. The change of stories, the lack of preparation, the lying, the holy.
You just made a case here that that we're going to hear from unusual people that you wouldn't normally hear from, perhaps at a Republican convention. These are the people that know the president best. They have the last name of Trump. Are you concerned that this is going to have an impact on those swing voters who are like, it's confirmation that, yeah, boy, even his own relatives think he lies too much?
No, Chuck, sibling rivalries are nothing new in the world. It's been going on since the beginning of time. In fact, we heard some pretty pointed commentary from Malik Obama about former President Barack Obama. And so this is something, unfortunately, when you get to the White House, you have family members who sometimes decide to voice their sibling rivalries or frustrations. Nothing new, but it's going into next week. It's not something that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, but Marianne Trump is no ordinary Trump. She's basically a retired federal judge, somebody who's sort of been Senate confirmed. She comes with credibility.
Well, Chuck, I can tell you in my conversations with the president over the years, I've only heard him say positive things about his sister, someone who's a very accomplished judge, and I think he's very proud of everything that she has accomplished. But I do want to make one other point here, Chuck. This past week, the president and Marianne Trump lost their brother, Robert Trump. And he was just laid to rest and had their services for him at the White House on Friday. And I really do think that it's shameful that the Washington Post came and ran this story yesterday, literally the day after the funeral services for Robert Trump, just an attempt to try to tear down the president. To do that right after they laid their brother to rest, I think is shameful.
I want to ask you about another development that happened late this week involving another member of the president's 2016 campaign. It's somebody that you've worked quite closely with. It's Steve Bannon. I think folks are quite familiar. He's been indicted on what appears to be perhaps he misled a charity, may have taken some money that wasn't meant for salaries and things like that for this We Build the Wall. First thing I want to ask, since you did a podcast with him, have you been interviewed at all by the Justice Department in this investigation, Jason?
I have not, and from public reports, it looks like this investigation was going long before the podcast even started, podcast and radio show that I co-hosted with Steve. These allegations are very serious, and I hope that Steve has some good answers for the things that he's been accused of. It's not something that I worked on. I don't know anything about the financial dealings of this organization or how it worked, and I hope Steve has the opportunity to tell his side of the story.
I want to put up this image here. Quite a few people who were involved in the Trump campaign in 2016 have had some issues with the law, indictments, convictions. You know some of these folks you worked with quite closely: Steve Bannon, Michael Flynn, George Papadopoulos, Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, Michael Cohen, Roger Stone, all people involved with this 2016 campaign team in some way or the other found themselves on the wrong side of the law. Why shouldn't voters look at this and say the president seems to surround himself with people with shady instincts?
I disagree on that. I think you take a look at the great people that President Trump has surrounded himself with, some of the brilliant women and some of the brilliant leaders that we have within this administration, some of our cabinet members. And I would say that overall, the president's had a very good track record of hiring excellent people. There are a number of folks on the list that you pointed out there, Chuck, who have made some serious mistakes in their life. They had nothing to do with President Trump, and they're going to have to be accountable for all of that. But when you take a look at the president and the people that he's brought on board, I take a look at his senior staff there at the White House, whether it be Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, whether it be Kellyanne Conway. I look at people like Jerron Smith and Stephen Miller. These are some really solid people who I think work very hard for the American people every day. I'm proud to call them teammates in this broader pro-Trump effort, and I think the president is proud of them as well.
Very quickly, Jason, you were brought back into the campaign about, I want to say it's been about 4 weeks. Time and the pandemic sometimes are a little off, so maybe it was a little bit longer. I may have that wrong. But before you got there, the Trump campaign had a massive fundraising lead advantage over the Biden campaign. They began this campaign in the spring with a $182 million cash advantage. That is now gone, and now the Biden campaign's outspending your campaign on television. What happened? Was there money that just disappeared? Did you guys waste this money in the summer? Is this why there's a new campaign team?
No, not at all. We're conserving money right now and focusing it a little bit more smartly and a little more effectively on the states that are voting early. An important thing for folks to keep in mind is the calendar looks completely different this go around than it did in 2016. The way there's the early voting, the way that there's absentee voting, the calendar starts differently in different states. So we're smartly targeting our efforts here. Keep in mind, we've already reserved almost $200 million in television advertising from Labor Day until election. And keep in mind, when the Biden camp came out and said recently they were going to reserve and spend over $200 million, somewhere in the $220 or $250 range. They've only placed about $8 million of that. But Chuck, you look at the polls over the last couple of weeks, the 51% approval in Rasmussen. Our own polls show us gaining by 4 points over the last 2 weeks. The enthusiasm advantage is 2-1 over the Biden camp. And Chuck, this is because I know you like to look at the numbers and you like to look at the pathways to victory. We only need to win one of these upper Midwest and Mid-Atlantic states with Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania to re-elect the president. We have many more pathways to victory than the Democrats do. I'd rather be in our shoes than theirs right now.
Yeah, your pathway there assumes you carry Florida, and that's a disruption. Very quickly, is the president going to speak?
Florida's Trump country.
Every single night of the convention, President Trump will speak?
You'll have President Trump speaking at various parts through each of the nights. And again, we have some big surprises lined up, and make sure you're tuning in, Chuck.
Okay. I will be there, as all of NBC will. Jason Miller, Senior Advisor with the Trump campaign. Appreciate you coming on, sharing your perspective. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello from Washington. I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe, and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.